And how could you help him to make a proper vibrato? So, breathing. There is normal breathing that most people who are not musicians, or, for example, don't practice yoga use. It's just normal breathing. With normal breathing, our lungs, when we inhale or exhale, move forward and back, and also a bit left and right, they expand. And a question, where are our lungs stored? What is outside our lungs? Who can answer? Rib cage. Yes, of course, we have a rib cage. And what does our rib cage do when we inhale and exhale? It expands. Yes, of course, it expands and compresses, meaning, for example, when we inhale, it looks like this. And it would be nothing. But in my opinion, it's a bit too much movement for a simple inhale and exhale. If we just slowly inhale and exhale, there is no problem. But if we need to take an intense breath, then it's like an obstacle for our inhale. And thank God, there is another type of breathing called performance breathing. People who practice yoga and also athletes use this breathing. The peculiarity of this breathing is that under our lungs there is a kind of partition, namely the diaphragm. Does everyone know what a diaphragm is? The diaphragm is a muscle. It can move. And where does it move? Yes, it moves down and up, meaning when we inhale, for example. So, I'll probably put the saxophone down for now. When we inhale, the diaphragm goes down, yes, and following it, our lungs also go down simultaneously, taking in oxygen and air. And our belly increases a bit, because it kind of frees up some space for our diaphragm to go down. And then the diaphragm has to go in the opposite direction, up, thereby expelling air from our lungs. The diaphragm is like a spring. When we take in air, thanks to the diaphragm, it goes down and thus deforms. It stretches like a spring. And its tendency is to return to its reverse, its original state. And returning to its original state, it thereby expels the air from our lungs. I really like to show on the example of a balloon how our diaphragm works. When we take air into the balloon, it expands, and for the air to start coming out of the balloon, what do we need to do? Just release 2 fingers a bit, and the air will come out on its own. And why will it come out? Because the balloon is made of rubber. Its original state is when it is uninflated. When we inflated it, it stretched, and its tendency is to return to its original state. The same with the diaphragm. When it stretches, its tendency is to return to its original state, thus expelling the air like a balloon now. A very interesting thing to make an exhale and just to make a sound on an instrument on a saxophone. It's enough just to relax. That is, we take a breath and just relax. And this is already enough. But there's another very interesting thing. When we take air into a balloon, it expands. And we have, apart from the rubber, 2 hands. Suppose we have a small hole in the balloon. And we can help with our hands to speed up the exit of the air. That is, we can control the speed of the air from the balloon. The same way our diaphragm works. Around our belly, there are also muscles. And thanks to these muscles, we can control the exit of air from our lungs. Another thing I wanted to say about how we can develop our diaphragm. What exercises we need to play. We'll get to articulation in a moment. But there's also the concept that we can play the saxophone without articulation. Just blow into the instrument. Once again. Meaning at this time, when we just send air still without sound, our belly should already be noticeably moving. It should decrease. If our belly decreases, it means our diaphragm is working. And another very good exercise when using only the mouthpiece, we have to play, for example, the note C of the third octave. Yes, we played the note C. And then what do we have to do? We have to play a chromatic scale on the piano down and repeat all the notes only using the mouthpiece. B flat. A flat. G flat. D flat. C. Let's try lower. B flat. Then it will be very difficult. The sounds will constantly break. Let me try the note G. I'm curious if it will work or not. No, it's very difficult already. The purpose of this exercise is to learn to play at least an octave. Anything more is only to your benefit. Maybe you have questions about how to change the intonation thanks to the mouthpiece. Does anyone have an answer? How can we change the intonation? Yes, on the sound O. And what happens in our mouth? A chamber like a light bulb. Probably. You're all right. This is very close. First of all, what is important to say? This exercise cannot be performed without the diaphragm. If you breathe only with the lungs, you will be able to play 3 or 4 notes. Everything below the note G will be almost impossible to play because there needs to be a very high pressure. A lot of air goes to perform notes that are lower than the note G. Normal breathing cannot provide such an amount of air. But thanks to the diaphragm, when you play on support, you will be able to play this exercise. How is the intonation performed thanks to only one mouthpiece? When you play the saxophone, if you listen a little to yourself, You will start to feel how the air moves in the saxophone. That is, it rises from our diaphragm, passes through our body, through the throat, through the oral cavity, and directly into the saxophone. Passing through the mouthpiece, it touches the reed, and we have vibration. And thanks to this vibration, we have a sound. And here, when this air, this flow of air, goes straight, we have a normal pitch that is correct intonation. What do we need to do to lower this intonation? We need to direct the stream of air down. That is, we play not exactly straight, but gradually begin to lower it into the reed. I call it this way because I can't define it in any other way. That is, we play a little bit into the reed. The air goes as if at an angle, and the bigger this angle, the lower the note. That is, on the note G, which I could not play, now I had such an angle, and the note still did not work. So how exactly do we need to do to control the stream of air that goes into the mouthpiece? Here, our lower jaw works. When we change the angle downwards, the jaw moves a bit backwards. Now I'll explain why it happens. Here are our upper teeth and lower teeth. And here is our air passing straight between the teeth. Well, here we generally have a mouthpiece. Look what happens. We move the lower jaw away. Everyone sees? The air goes, and it has to make such an arch because it can't go up. Because here are the upper teeth. Perhaps you can play differently. The airstream can be directed upwards. That is, we slightly move the lower jaw outward. For example, the lower jaw protrudes a bit outward, and the air goes up, this way. And by the way, sometimes there are bends that we have to play upwards, but they are very rarely used. How exactly does it work? When you practice, remember this exercise, that it happens thanks to the lower jaw. You have to feel the air stream that goes into the mouthpiece. All right. This is what I wanted to say about this exercise. Perhaps someone knows other exercises for the diaphragm. There is such, maybe not exactly an exercise. I think everyone knows about this exercise, where you lie down on the bed or on a bench, you just lie on your back and put several books on your belly. It's the simplest exercise just to feel how the diaphragm should work. If you breathe and the books don't move, the books can be lifted so that you just hold your breath and deliberately inflate your belly. No, it doesn't work that way. Precisely when you inhale and the books rise a little. Everyone should do this, and I generally advise practicing to your own pleasure. For example, don't exhaust yourself with practices if you really don't want to practice. Well, of course, if you don't want to practice for a week, then you need to. But you need to practice for 15 to 20 minutes. You can drink some tea, watch a video of a saxophonist, get inspired, and then practice again. And by the way, one more trick. For some reason, I thought of it now. Even saxophonists who, as you think, don't play very well, they also have something to learn from. For example, you look at a child or a guy who doesn't play very well, and you think to yourself, why exactly does he not play well? What exactly does he fail at? For example, he has a poor vibrato. And how could you help him to make a proper vibrato? By the way, the topic of vibrato, how to do vibrato properly. By the way, can I explain? Please, a couple of words, okay? How do you think vibrato is done with the help of dynamics or intonation? By the way, at Eric Marienthal's school, he talked about several ways to do vibrato. And he said something about the option with the diaphragm, but he does not use that method. My own view of how to perform vibrato. That is what I do. And what exactly does the jaw do? Now I'll tell you my view, strictly my view. When we send air into the mouthpiece straight, we have an opening in the mouthpiece, a certain opening, diameter. Let's call it diameter. For example, it looks like this. The speed of the air that goes into the saxophone directly affects the volume. That is, if you slow down the speed of the air into the saxophone, it plays quieter. This does not mean that we are not playing on the diaphragm. When we supply very intense air into the saxophone with the help of the diaphragm, a very high speed of air, it starts playing very loudly, and we have an opening. We use our embouchure. Now think about the jaw. What part of the jaw do we use? We have an embouchure, and our task is just to reduce this opening. It was like this. We slightly reduce it around the circumference. And what happens when we reduce this opening? The diaphragm still works the same, and the input opening has shrunk a bit, and the speed of the air has decreased as a result. And what does the saxophone do? Plays a bit quieter. And then we relax our embouchure in the opposite direction. We relax the lips. The ring returned to its original state. The speed of the air was restored, and the saxophone began to play a bit louder. That is, I would say that vibrato is really played thanks to dynamics, not thanks to intonation. This is my view of how to do vibrato. You can also practice vibrato and remember my words that I'm telling you now. And if it helps you, that would be very cool. All right, let me try to talk a bit about embouchure. Who plays with which embouchure? Andre, come here. Mouthpiece, do you have it? No mouthpiece. Okay. In general, in the embouchure setting, there is nothing complicated. You don't need to be afraid of it, as if it's something very, very complicated. There are very basic rules that we have to follow. And when you are a beginner, you have to stand as comfortably as possible with the saxophone. You don't need to stretch towards the mouthpiece. You don't need to clamp down there. You just stand relaxed as much as possible, standing straight, just holding the saxophone. And the same goes for our hands, for our fingers, that in no case do we press the saxophone's valves too hard. This is especially what beginners do. When they fail to play a note, they think that if they clamp the valves very hard, then the note will sound better. No, the saxophone likes it when it is treated like a woman. Can you play some sound? Try the note G. Well done, good, and if quieter. Good. And the note A?
Молодець.
Well done. By the way, the setting is not bad for him.
Постановка непогана в нього.
I don't know who the teacher is.
Ти викладач?
Yours? You are the teacher? Super.
У нас є
We
два
have two
варіанти, як
options
ми
for
можемо
how we can
поставити.
place our lips.
Це
This is all about the lower lip. We can turn it onto the lower teeth.
на нижні зуби. Але,
But
ми
since we're
зараз
talking about
розмовляємо
modern
про
music,
музику, там,
jazz, funk, fusion, pop music, so all modern styles, there is a better option, a better setting.
Краща постановка. До речі,
By the way, Andrei is already doing well.
непогано це він робить. Тобто, дуже прості
So
правила.
very simple rules. The first rule that we need to know, our upper teeth should have a support point on the mouthpiece from
До
above.
речі, тут така чорна площадка.
Here we have such a black platform. It's like a
Не
reference.
на всіх мундштуках це
Not
є,
all
причому,
mouthpieces have this, but almost all of them.
в одному
And the
сантиметрі
teeth are
спочатку.
located about 1 centimeter from the beginning of the mouthpiece.
Все. Губи
Our lips close around the mouthpiece just to not let the air out, so that the air is directed precisely into the mouthpiece.
І далі основний момент.
And then the main
ми маємо
point,
грати, нижню частину
we have the lower part of the mouthpiece. Where the reed is, we put it on the soft part of the lower lip.
Тобто мокро.
That is the wet one.
Наступним етапом,
The
коли
next
він вже буде
stage,
це
when he will
робити,
already
нам грати,
practice,
він буде
we'll
декілька
play
позицій
scales,
грати.
we'll play
Потрібно
compositions.
звертати на те,
It is
що
necessary to pay attention to the fact that the corners of the mouth should be slightly brought to the middle, to the center.
Так? Це,
This will shape our sound. It will be more accurate.
буде більш точнішим. Ось, але головна
But the main idea about embouchure setting
з приводу постановки, постановка на 99%
is that it depends 99% on what?
від діафрагми.
On the diaphragm.
Тому що
Because if you
якщо,
breathe
у
correctly,
вас правильно працює
and the
дихання,
diaphragm
правильно
works
працює
correctly,
діафрагма, то ваші губи
then your lips will naturally find the
самі
correct position.
природньо знайдуть правильне положення. Не потрібно
There will
буде
be no need to
вдумуватися.
reinvent the wheel.
Тобто я б
That
більше
is, I would focus
зосередив,
more on not the embouchure, but ensuring that our breathing works correctly.
постановці, щоб у нас правильно дихання працювало. Ні, скільки...
How long has Andrei been practicing?
2 тижні?
Just 2 weeks. Literally.
Молодець. Давайте про...
Well done. For now, take a seat.
Ну, поки що присаджуйся. Добре. Артикуляція. Артикуляція
Good. Articulation in modern music.
в сучасній музиці, так скажемо. Хто знає...
Who knows and who uses what articulation? Does anyone know what articulation on the saxophone is? I think you know.
Штрихи. Так,
Yes, I thought so. Tongue attack. Once again, attack.
Ще раз. Атака язика. Угу. Чіткість, якість. Угу.
The beginning and the end of the sound.
До речі, я майже такими словами...
By the way, I almost wanted to start with those words.
Добре.
Good articulation.
Артикуляція. У нас є звук,
We have a sound
у нас є
and we have a note.
І у цієї ноти,
This note has a beginning,
початок, далі сама
the note
нота
itself,
і її
and its ending.
завершення. І давайте зараз
Let's talk about the
поговоримо
beginning
саме
of the
про початок
sound.
звуку. Як я і сказав, найпростішим
As I said,
способом
the simplest way to produce a sound on the saxophone or other wind instruments is just to blow into the saxophone.
просто подути в саксофон. Але на практиці,
But in practice, this kind of playing is rarely used.
досить рідко
For example, I have never used it in my life.
Я її ні разу не використовував. Я постійно
I always play with articulation.
І
And
є
there is another way we can play the beginning of a sound.
Початок звуку. Це з
It's with articulation.
Тобто, що таке
That
артикуляція?
is, what is
Якщо
articulation?
простими словами, це коли
Simply
ми
put, it's when we
розмовляємо
talk into the saxophone.
Ми не
We
кажемо
don't say
прямо
words
слова такі,
directly,
але
but we
вона
have two
є
syllables,
два
thanks to
слова,
which
завдяки
everything
яким
happens.
відбувається. Це
These are the
перший
first syllable.
та і другий
and the second
так,
syllable
да. Та і да. Хтось
ta
скаже,
and da. Have you heard of these syllables?
Так? О,
Oh,
супер.
great.
Отже, щоб нам зіграти...
So to play the syllable ta,
Я думаю, всі знають, як
I think everyone knows how to play
просто атаку.
or just make an attack on the saxophone.
Так? Ми просто, наче,
So
хочемо
we
сказати
just
літеру
like
Т,
want to say
коли
the letter
говоримо
T.
без мундштука,
When we
тобто
say without a
у нас,
mouthpiece, the
якщо
letter
придивимося,
T,
у
if we
нас,
pay attention, the
язик,
tongue bounces off the upper inside of the upper teeth.
відбиває від верхньої і зворотньої сторони
It leans
верхніх
there.
зубів. Так? Він туди прислоняється. Та. Але
But
без звуку.
voicelessly.
Але коли у нас ми беремо мундштук,
When we take the
то у
mouthpiece,
нас ми
we no
можемо
longer have
зробити
access to the
верхніх
upper
зубів.
teeth.
У нас
There's a reed
просвіт.
there.
Тому ми
So we say
кажемо
T against the
просвіт.
reed.
Ось без
Here's
артикуляції.
without articulation.
Ось з артикуляцією.
Here with articulation.
Всі чують, що
Do you all hear how the beginning of the sound became clearer? What part of the tongue do you use? What part of the tongue do you?
без мундштука ви можете
Touch the
спробувати.
tongue without a mouthpiece.
Коли ви
You can try it. When you say the letter T,
яка частина язика у
which
нас
part of the tongue
торкається
touches the upper
не
teeth?
це
Children perceive it better when they say the syllable D.
де. Можливо,
Maybe.
можливо. Так, це
Yes,
слушна думка.
that's a valid
Де.
point.
Але це більше
But it's
схоже
more
на
like the
другу
second
складу.
syllable da.
Можливо, з да. Так.
Maybe da?
Да, да. Так. Дуже схоже.
Very
Але
similar.
та, перший
But the
спосіб,
first
коли
method when we
ви
play ta still has to be a clear attack.
все ж таки це та. Це має бути чітка атака. Давайте так назвемо.
Let's say it's about half a centimeter from the tip of the tongue, the upper part of the tongue. With this part, we touch the mouthpiece. Now about the second articulation.
До речі,
By the way,
ти казав, у тебе є учень.
you said you have a student?
Рома,
Please, Roma, we invite you.
є різниця між варіантом.
There's a difference between saying ta and saying da.
Та у нас не більш
Ta has a more rigid
жорстка
attack.
атака. Да у нас
Da is a soft attack, and now you'll find out why.
Ви дізнаєтесь, навіщо нам
Why do we need a
жорстка
hard
і
and soft
м'яка
attack?
атака. Добре, зіграємо.
All right, play the note G with the articulation ta.
Добре, зіграємо
Good.
тобто
Now play, for
просто
example, G major so that all notes were on ta.
ноти, щоб були та-та-та-та-та-та-та. І вниз.
And down.
Молодець. Так. Непогано виходить.
Well done, ta. Not bad.
Так,
Super.
друга-
And the second type of articulation, which I haven't yet explained how to play.
Да, можеш зіграти?
Da. Can we play it? Try it.
Добре, зіграй просто...
Okay, play just on one note.
Ну так.
Well, yes,
так,
quite close. Well done. Not bad. Super.
Молодець, непогано. Супер. Тобто,
So the articulation DA is done in the same way as we play the articulation TA.
Артикуляцію та,
But instead of the letter T, we say the letter D.
кажемо літеру Д. Навіщо нам
Why do we need the
артикуляція
articulation
та
da
і
and
да?
DA?
Зіграй
Play four notes of G slowly, a bit more rigidly.
4 ноти соль. А більш жорсткіше? О, зараз
Oh, it was noticeable now.
перший раз просто він м'яко зіграв. Перша нота
All
вже
subsequent
ніколи
notes, when we
немає.
play them with the articulation TA, will have a micropause between notes.
Коли ми
And
будемо
here, for example, if I play with the articulation da, then here I have the opportunity to play with a soft attack.
Так? А ось якщо,
Or,
наприклад,
as you said,
грати
day. In this
артикуляцію
case, it is a
«да»,
soft attack.
то тут
Understood.
я маю можливість грати м'якою атакою. Да, або як ти сказав? The. The. Да. Ось в цьому випадку так. Це м'яка атака. Так? Зрозуміли? І...
And you study in the pop department? And do you play Fly Me to the Moon?
Fly Me to the Moon.
Can you play a piece?
Молодець.
Well done. Let's applaud. Well done. You play with different strokes. The intonation is not bad, the sound is good, but you need to work on breathing because now you played without the diaphragm. That is, now you need to focus entirely on the diaphragm. And everyone knows what their problems are, for example. The diaphragm is 99% of your success. Breathing, breathing, and breathing. If you have breathing, you will have a sea of pleasure playing the instrument. And this is not only on the saxophone, it's on any wind instrument. Imagine a vocalist who sings without a diaphragm. That's not a vocalist. Well done. For now, take a seat. Don't pack up the saxophone yet. Everyone knows that our music consists of What does music consist of? An ordinary composition. Super, 5 points. Yes, phrases. Yes, every song, any composition consists of phrases. And in modern music, always at the beginning of a phrase, the first note is always with the articulation ta. Well done. Yes, with the articulation ta. And the following notes, if we remove all the ties, no, no, no. Let me explain. We are removing leagues. And for example, our phrase goes in eighth notes. The first eighth note, we start with the articulation ta, and all the following notes, we play da. That is, we need to remove these small pauses between notes. Do you understand? And we will play neither legato nor staccato. Let's say conditionally so. The notes will be clearer. That is, all the following eighth notes will be, for example, I would play on ta. And let's imagine that we have a phrase. And in the middle of the phrase, it might be possible that we have a pause. In the middle of the phrase after this pause, what should be the articulation? The note after this pause in the middle of the phrase. the first note ta, then all da.
Так, ми її...
So we perceive it as again the first note, but as the first note in the middle of the phrase. This is the basic principle of playing articulation in a lot of pop music. Smooth jazz is played using precisely such articulation, possibly even entirely without leagues. Here will be in leagues. Who knows how a note is closed? More boldly. Right? Yes. We have to close the articulation again, as if we are saying T at the end. T closes with the tongue against the reed, and thus we get a sound. A question: how do you do it? We press the tongue against the reed at the front. No. Right in the middle, right in the center. The main idea is that when we play on the mouthpiece, the air passes through from the front and the sides. Right? But when we press the tongue against the reed, we block the air passage into the mouthpiece only from the front, meaning the air starts going through the sides. It's as if the sound changes, not the intonation, but the sound. And one more important thing that I forgot to mention about the embouchure. I wanted to say that the air goes from the diaphragm, passes through the body, through the throat, gets into the mouthpiece, touches the reed, vibration occurs, oscillation, and sound is produced. And we need to do this in such a way as not to hinder the reed from vibrating. We should not clamp down on this reed. It should be able to oscillate freely. It's normal practice for a saxophonist to study not just with one teacher. Sorry, Andre. To study with different musicians, with different teachers. There's an opportunity to buy some courses. But the courses, as you know, exactly this course, I need it. Buy it and practice with the help of this course. Nowadays, we have the time and opportunity. We can do all this for self-development. So friends, once again, I want to thank you for coming to the masterclass today. I hope it was interesting and useful for you. And also, if you wish, come to the concert of Artem Pivovarov tonight. The door opens at 6 and it starts at 7. So, we'll be waiting for you. Good luck to you. Thank you.
The